much for having me. We have a country to save. We all better fight like hell. God bless. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you. Please take a seat. Take a seat. Also, please, a little bit less in the spotlight. I'm going to be blinded by the time I'm done speaking. You guys can see me okay, right? It is such an honor to be here, and I always feel so honored to be invited to speak across the country, especially during this time when I know that so many people are in this room because you, like many other people in America, are feeling so hopeless about the state of our country. And particularly after this last election, we realized we don't even know if we have meaningful elections anymore. There is nothing that the left is not willing to do to destroy this country. The gaslighting, the lies, referring to everybody that is a Trump supporter. Now we're allegedly terrorists and insurrectionists, and any people that believe in conservative principles right now are really being castigated by the media. And I think it's really important for everybody to understand that what's happening in this country didn't just start now. We're actually at a very late stage of what has been a cancerous movement from the left to establish a totalitarian system in America. And I was fortunate enough to sit down and have dinner with a few people that are here, right here, this group of individuals earlier. And I just said, what's on your mind? Like, tell me what's going on, what's happening right now in this state, and what are a lot of people talking about? And I get the same answer everywhere across America. Particularly, there is a focus on having a discussion about children. We don't know what to do with children, and I know somebody brought up mask mandates and this attempt to essentially coerce people into getting vaccinated and their children into getting vaccinated. They're even trying to establish a two-tier system, reintroduce medical segregation, and I want to be very clear, I don't care whether or not you want to get vaccinated every single day or if you want to not get vaccinated at all. What I believe in is personal freedom and personal choice. And let me tell you, when we no longer have autonomy over our bodies, you don't have that anymore. And you'll hear the left conflate that, by the way. You hear them say, oh, so now all of a sudden you're pro-choice. And that means that you are a person that believes that women should have the right to abort children. No, this has nothing to do with carrying another human being. That means there are two human beings in there and one person being allowed to make a choice. The CDC, COVID-19, this pandemic that we're in, of course we know coronaviruses have been real viruses for a very long time. There's no person that I believe thinks that the coronavirus is not real. But I also believe that it's important that we have a discussion that what is happening right now in this country is not because of coronavirus. I think everybody in this room knows that what we have seen happening in this country is not because of COVID-19. COVID-19 is not requiring medical segregation. COVID-19 is not masking children. Government policy is doing all of these things. And the reason that they're doing that is because what they're looking for, and this is what Trump was fighting for 4 years, is to establish communism in the West. That is obviously the push that is happening right now in this country. In fact, I recently was talking to my husband, and if you guys follow my show, you know I talked about it this week, about what it was like for me when I visited China when I was 18 years old. I still remember the trip, and it was the most terrible trip that I've ever taken in my entire life. I was scarred when I went to China. I was 18 years old. It was via a high school program called Future Business Leaders of America, and my teacher, who was accurate now looking back, said China will be the future of business, so we should go there and take a trip. And I was so shocked because I had American privilege, obviously. I had never traveled really out of the country. I went to Canada. That doesn't count. Prior to this trip to China, and I was literally shocked at the state of things. I was shocked. I didn't understand why everybody was wearing a mask, first and foremost. I didn't understand why people were walking down the street and everybody was masked, which made every single person look alike. And to me, it was incredibly dehumanizing. You already feel like you're in a slave country when you walk around and everybody's wearing a mask, right? Because when you think of a medical mask, you think of illness, right? So you're looking at people and your perspective is these people are diseased. There's something wrong here. And here I was as an American going, this feels really wrong. And then I was astonished at the poverty, the sheer poverty. And I'm a person that came from poverty. And yet this level of poverty, people showering in the streets, people that clearly had nothing, astonished me. Children using the bathroom just, on the side of the street. This is something that astonished me. And I remember calling my then boyfriend, my high school boyfriend, and crying every single night that I just wanted to get back to America. And I had a conversation with my husband recently about that trip, and I said to him, it's fascinating to consider that in a nation of nearly 1.5 billion people, that's China, right? 1.5 billion people, they accept this, that they just accept this. Obviously, there are more of them than there are of their government members. There's more Chinese citizens than there are of the totalitarian individuals that run this government, and yet you don't hear, there's no uprising. Why do they just choose to live this day to day? Why don't they stand up and say, no, this is enough? And my husband said something, and it really permeated. He said, because think about the history of China since the beginning, since ancient China. He said that the Chinese people have only known oppression, right? I'm going to say that again. The Chinese people have only known oppression. It is the story of oppression. So there's nothing in their memory that is being passed down that allows them to think about that, to say, this is not right. We should be free, right? If all they know is slavery, then who's going to fight for freedom? And then I thought about how much that was true of my own life, and I thought about, and those of you that have read my book know the story of my first play date. I'll never forget the girl. Blonde hair, blue eyes, her name was Lindsay. We became fast friends. Actually, should see what she's up to these days. And she said, do you want to come to my house? And prior to having this first play date, I had only known my family's situation. Our cousins, we'd go to their houses. Everybody was poor. Me and my sisters, we shared a small bedroom. It was a roach-infested apartment. I assumed everybody lived like this. I had no other experience that taught me otherwise, so this is just the way people live. I'm a child. I'm happy. I'm running around. And I was so shocked when, after school, I went to her house, and we went on a drive, and the houses kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I still distinctly remember the drive up in her mother's Suburban to her house. I still distinctly remember, this is a childhood memory. There's something about childhood memories that just stick with you for a really long time when you have a shock or an experience. I distinctly remember her house. I remember the White House. I remember the name of the street. I wrote about it in my book. I remember getting into her house and thinking it was literally a mansion. Just thinking, how could she live like this? How does she have her own bedroom? How is it possible that Lindsay has her own bedroom? This is insane. How is it possible that she has this pristine set of dolls? These are her own toys. She doesn't have to share with her sister. Her sister has her own bedroom. And then I was shocked to learn that she also had her own playroom. In the basement, they had transformed Lindsay's room into a playroom. And I went, oh my goodness, this is incredible. She has a place to play. Space, real estate in her home just for her to play. The concept just completely defied my reality. I was 5 years old. I didn't know any different. I thought everybody had to share rooms with their siblings. I remember going home that day and just having a lot of questions in my own mind, but beyond anything else, I wanted that for myself. I thought, wow, I didn't know people could live like that, right? I didn't know people could live like that. I want that for myself. So there it is right there. In that moment, I'm looking and I'm realizing that something else exists, and I want that. And this is what my husband is saying about China, the mainland China. They don't know anything else exists. How could they possibly want it? Which brings me to America today, so that we really understand what it is we are fighting. We have a memory of freedom because we had it, I think it was just a couple of years ago. I think, right? Seems like a long distant memory where you were just allowed to go and hang out with your friends at a concert or a bar and not be yelled at for breathing, right? I think it was a couple of years ago where this was okay. We have the memory of this society, but I promise you, if we don't fight to tooth and nail, we will have children that are growing up right now in this country who think it's normal. Who think it's normal to be masked to go to school, who think that's completely normal. In fact, they're terrified, right? This is what you have to do because you're already diseased. Of course, that defies the statistics. This isn't about health anymore. You know the children have virtually no risk of dying of the coronavirus. We're going to mask them anyways, right? They're going to have no idea, no concept of a society before papers to move, right? That was a conspiracy theory a year ago. Now it's a reality in New York City. You need to have vaccine passports to move. In fact, the Biden administration has announced they are not going to allow anybody in from the country, into our country. Of course, if you come in through the border, it doesn't matter. You can have coronavirus, no papers, you're good. Do something the legal way, and they're going to restrict you. They're going to say that you can't come in unless you get this vaccine. So they will not have a memory of a society in which they had options. They could choose whether or not they wanted to inject something into their own body. This is the purpose of this exercise, to destroy the memory of freedom. We are the last stand right now in this country for the memory of freedom, right? The memory. We have the memory of freedom. We had an inspired conversation about what this means for parents. And when I talk about how memories just go away, right? We have no idea. So many parents come up to me and talk to me about critical race theory. They're fighting the administration. So many parents come into, I don't know what to do about what's happening in the school systems. They're sexualizing children. Pick your gender, right? Pick your gender. They're showing pornography in the high school classrooms. And I have a bunch of parents that come up to me and say, I don't know what to do about this. And when I say to them, withdraw your children, remember that you are the parent. They seem shocked. It's a tough pill to swallow. It's like, what do you mean withdraw my child from school? Like, this is just what we've always done. This is what we've always done. You have no memory of that time before, right? When America was established, when the Pilgrims came over, when mothers were home. You have no memory of that time when actually it was more normal for a mother to be home. It was more normal for the family to raise the child. We've already lost that memory in the society. It seems so ancient to us. In fact, the cultural doctrines teach us that it's wrong for women not to climb the corporate ladder. What do you think that is? Why do you think you feel this pressure? Well, we have to work. We all have to work. I mean, we have a two-parent home. We both work. Where do you even think that came from? That's unusual. That's new. That's different. And that was planned. That's why I say we're actually at the late stage. They knew early on what they had to do. It was to break down the family. It used to be that parents were in the home teaching their children everything. Of course, moms split up when they landed on Plymouth Rock. You take Mondays, I'll take Tuesdays. They homeschooled. Now, homeschool comes with a stigma. The weird kids homeschool. You don't even know where you learned that. I know I grew up, I thought the same thing. The weird kids are homeschooled. Where did you learn that? You don't even know. You don't even know because you don't have a memory of when it was normal for moms to stay at home, when that was the norm for mothers to stay at home and to raise their children. And now you're shocked and confused about what you're supposed to do when your child is being masked behind a filthy cloth. Children are the grimiest people ever. The idea that they're somehow being kept safe and sanitary behind a mask means that anybody who even says that has never been with a child. It's never been with a child, right? Germs is their thing, right? It is their thing. They get sick, they make the whole house sick. And this is actually what people are trying to grapple with. What do I do? What you do is you remember that you are the parent and you really actually stop and take measure. Take an accounting right now of what we're even talking about in terms of the school systems. Because it's not just the masking that's problematic. It's not the vaccination efforts inside of the school, in the nurse's office that we're talking about. Again, that's late stage. That's where we're at now. That's the final step of turning America into China. There's so much more going on. So much more going on in that classroom. They've got your kids because they made you feel like you had to send your kids to school and climb a corporate ladder. They did that. And they're going to have your kids for longer than just 18 years, by the way. They're going to have your kids longer beyond their 18th birthday because they've also made you feel pressure that your kid's got to go to university. Your kid's got to go to university. Your kid's going to be a failure if you don't go to university, right? If you don't go to university and get a degree, your kid's going to be an idiot and is going to be a failure. And you don't want to be that parent that sends your kid to trade school, right? Where did that get into your brain? Because I inherited that from my parents, this concept. And I'll tell you where it's happening in school. Got to get a guidance counselor, got to apply to a bunch of schools. What do you want to do? I don't know. Just get into school and you'll figure it out. How much of what they're even learning is about life skills beyond just indoctrination? Do you know? Do you even know what your kids are learning at university? What is your kid majoring in? Why are you sending your children to university? Well, in June, all the parents go on Facebook and we post what school and university our kids are going to. That's why I'm doing it. My son got into, yay, 60 likes. Congratulations, guys. You just sold your child to Marxist ideology for 60 likes, right? 60 likes is all it took. How hard is it to just say no? And I'm not talking about if your child's got, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. Of course, your kid's got to go to school. You can't just learn that, right? But actually, think about this. The same society, the same culture that told you that your child won't be successful unless, the same society that told you that this is what it's all about, it means you were a successful parent if your child goes to university, is also the same society that has a bunch of people running it that never got a college degree. We're fighting Mark Zuckerberg, he dropped out. We're fighting Jack Dorsey, he dropped out. We're fighting Bill Gates, he dropped out. I mean, do I need to go on? Jeff Bezos, he dropped out. People that run Google, they both dropped out of UPenn, right? The people that have put that into your mind, that are reinforcing that to you, know that you can be successful in this country without a college degree because they did it. They know actually that your child, if they learn to feel confident in themselves, if they learn entrepreneurialism, right? If they get to work and actually figure out what the heck they want to do before they rack up $100,000 in student loan debt, they probably have a better chance. They now know that when they're sending their kids to school, parents have this memory of when universities actually taught something. I don't blame you guys. They used to, actually. If you go and take time to read up on the standardized testing, it actually is true. A few generations ago, people were learning stuff at university. People were going into school and coming out smarter. That is no longer the circumstance. There's a wonderful book that I recommend every person read by Thomas Sowell. It is called Inside the Education System. It is shocking. Objectively speaking, we are producing dumber and dumber and dumber kids. That's the point of Common Core math. That's the point of all of these efforts about equitable math, funded by Bill Gates, by the way. Equitable math, in case you don't know about it, look it up. Bill and Melinda Gates are funding an effort to make it so that children no longer get an X if they get the wrong answer. It's all about trying. So they'll still get the same amount of points if they get the wrong answer because did they try? Because assuming, and I kid you not, but a child should get the right answer in math is a form of, you guessed it, white supremacy. Yes. That's the effort that is coming to a school near you. Getting the right answer is a form of white supremacy. And if you disagree, it's because, well, you know what, your parents are white supremacists. That's why they want you to get the right answer. And these kids will believe it, of course. 6 hours a day without mom and dad, learning things in school, learning that they should be undermining their parents, which is the whole goal of the public education system, to undermine parents in every single regard. Then off to college where there are no parents, learning for the first 2 years, nothing to even do with your major, gen ed requirements, foolishness, wokeism requirements is what it is. I took it, I know, feminism 101, I had to take it, I was forced to take it. Why was I forced to take it? I was majoring in journalism. Why did I need to learn to hate men in order to get a degree in journalism? Because they know that once they get you in the school, 2 years just condition you to believe things. And they'll maybe teach you something to do with your major that will be irrelevant by the time you get out of school, 90% of the time. I mean, now the degrees, have a look, by the way. Have a look online at what you can get a degree, and you'll be shocked. You will be shocked. I was shocked at how much has transformed since I left school. Even at the university I went to, they didn't have the majors available that they have available today. I don't know what you do with a gender studies degree. I really don't. I really don't. I cannot think of even one time at my house where I said, quick, call a gender studies major. Get them here ASAP, right? I don't know what you do with it, but they're going to make you pay $100,000 for it now, right? $100,000, you can get a gender studies degree. You can get a degree in LGBTQRS studies. You know, you can get, I don't know what you do with that degree. In fact, notoriously, I sat down next to a woman when I was testifying at Congress who was a professor. She had a doctorate in white supremacy. I'm like, how much money did you, what do you do with this? Well, I'll tell you what she does. She sits next to a black person and she explains to her what it is that black people are going through in America, because she's a doctor. She's a doctor, so this is not even, it never occurs to her, like, this is a black person. It's just like, I'm going to tell you what black people are going through, because I have and that is what's happening. You create passionate idiots. And I say that with so much sincerity, that the system today is built to create passionate idiots. You've never had kids, and this was what an astonishing statistic that came out of that book. We have never, at any point in this country, awarded more degrees, and yet this is the dumbest generation that we've ever created. So why are they doing it? Think about that equation. It doesn't make sense. The most degrees ever handed out, and yet the kids are dumber. From a standardized testing perspective, the kids are actually dumber. So what does that mean? It means they want them to be overconfident about the nothing that they know. I want you to be super confident about the nothing that you know, so that at any moment you can say, but I have a degree, right? But I have a degree. And then what happens when you're super confident about the nothing that you know, and then you leave university and you get punched in the face with reality. You find out that, no, it's true, not just Candace Owens, but everybody in the world won't call me to deal with a gender studies emergency at their house. I don't know how to make money, right? Real world hits you in the face, and you can't make money, and yet you've got all of these loans that you've got to pay down. You're in debt. Sally Mae is calling every day, right? This is how you're starting your life, in negative. And you go, but I did everything right. I did everything I was supposed to do. I took the test. I went to school. I learned about white privilege. Why can't I make any money? And then you find out that that person that you thought was an idiot that you went to high school with, an idiot who went to trade school and fixes AC. Yeah, Candace Owens and half of America needs that guy. And that guy is making real money because he's got a real skill. And you can't believe it. You can't believe it. Years go on, you find out he's running a business and he's fixing air conditioners. In fact, people need plumbers. People need all this stuff, and you're, with your degree, holding on to this meaningless degree. So then what happens? You're converted into a bitter, angry person that is convinced that the system is broken. You're convinced that capitalism is bad, that free markets are bad, that America is rotten, that it's the rich man's fault, that it's the rich people are greedy, and you've got to fight it tooth and nail. And so you take on the only job that you can take on with a meaningless degree. You become a professor at the same idiot university that you went to. This is what is happening in this country right now, today. That is what is happening when you send your kids off to school. I want you to know that that is what they are learning. They are learning about white privilege. They are learning about gender studies. They are not learning about math. We rank 37th in the world. 37th in the world, and I promise you that will be going down a lot quicker once they start putting equitable math, and they make that a national effort. Equitable math. We will be getting dumber and dumber and woker and woker. And of course, it is because the goal in any totalitarian society is to render the population useless. An educated mind cannot be enslaved. So if you wish to enslave an entire population, you have to make them stupid. We know this. It's the lesson that Black America learned. It is the lesson of slave codes, right? There's a reason why Black Americans were not allowed to learn how to read. It wasn't just because they didn't want them reading. They didn't want them doing any leisurely activities. It was because they knew that if they learned to read, they could become educated. And an educated mind could not be enslaved. harsh restrictions for even a white person if they were caught teaching a black slave to read. And so what have the Democrats done? They've repurposed that. They said this is what it takes to develop a system of slavery. They know because they did it. They authored it in America way back when, and they're doing it again. The second thing that you learned from the lesson of slavery in this country is, aside from making sure that the slave population isn't educated, you need to make sure that the family unit is not intact. You break down the family. In fact, that is probably the most important element of maintaining slavery. So when you look up and you're sitting here and you're wondering, what the heck is the left doing? Every day it's a new fire. These people are pyromaniacs, things that you didn't even think they would burn down. They're like, bathroom signs have to go. That's got to, nope, that is an injustice. No more bathroom signs, male, female, that's got to go, right? And you go, what the heck is wrong with these people? Nobody ever had a problem with the bathroom signs, and suddenly they're marching in the streets about them. Well, what you're talking about with this transgender movement, what you're talking about when you're trying to tell a bunch of kids that they can pick their gender, what you're talking about when the cartoons are now reinforcing lesbian and gay relationships is a death cult. You cannot reproduce. You cannot have nuclear. They don't want the nuclear family, all right? That's what happens when somebody mutilates their body. That's what happens when you encourage same-sex marriage. You are guaranteeing yourself that there will be a broken down family unit. It's the reason they attack the pillar of faith, right? You don't have to be religious to understand that it's weird to have so many people making fun of Christians, making fun of religious people. It's weird, it's bizarre. Random attacks in pop culture. Joy Behar mocking Mike Pence for being faithful to his wife, saying that, you know, he talks to Jesus, and they're mocking this. Well, it is because when you desire as a government to be God, there can be no other God. When you desire to be the God, and this is straight from Marxist ideology, straight from the Communist Manifesto, when the government wants to be God and wants to be the pillar of faith, they know for a fact with the Democrats, they are not stupid. They're Machiavellian. They are very smart. People think it's chaos. It's not. It's a plan. It's focused. They understand that there's no such thing as an atheist. If you think you're an atheist, if you know somebody who thinks they're an atheist, tell them to guess again. Faith is never missing. It's just replaced. Okay? And they know that. The government knows. You may not believe in God. You say, I don't believe in God. Well, they'll tell you what you do believe in, right? Environmentalism. You worship it. See these kids, the fire in their eye. They'll do anything. They will create your new demigods. And at the end of the day, when you worship any of these demigods that they establish, it always leads back to more government. Climate change. What do you think climate change alarm is? That's a religion. That's a cult. You think the world's ending every 10 years? How's it possible? How did we all survive a leftist apocalypse, right? It's incredible. My generation was global warming. 10 years, they told us. 10 years, not going to be here, this planet. We were terrified. Watching in school, Inconvenient Truth, once again, in school, right? The programming in school. Become an activist for the climate, you're not going to be alive in 10 years. Shocking, scary for a child, right? Trying to establish some faith. Go out, fight, march for us. By the way, we can fix it if you give us trillions and trillions of your tax dollars. And I'm not the only generation. There was the global cooling generation. You guys might remember that. Apparently the Earth was going to freeze. There was the ozone layer generation. There was, and this is the worst one, acid rain. Could you imagine kids that were scared every time it rained? That's just evil. That's really, I'd like to have a word with whoever came up with that climate alarmism thing. I mean, like, imagine if you were a kid living in Seattle. Like, that's really, it's not appropriate. Over and over again, they keep telling children, and they always pick 10 years. They like that number. It's precise. 10 years, this planet's going to be gone. And then when they miss the deadline, they just go, oh, it's a different thing now. It's something else that you're going to die of. Again, it's about creating fear. It's about rerouting their faith. They want them to have ultimately faith in government. Ultimately, they want the government to be the family, right? You have a question, you don't go to mom and dad. You're not, this is no longer a nuclear family. This is a modern family. Things are different now. Families are so backwards, right? This is different now. So when you need help, you don't go to mom and dad. If you have a question, you don't go to mom and dad. Why would you go to mom and dad? You go to culture. You go to the internet. Things that the government controls. Hollywood. Who did Lady Gaga say I should vote for? That's what happens when you're no longer sitting around the dinner table talking about meaningful things with mom and dad, when they have your children at school for 6 hours a day. You turn to anybody but that nuclear family. The nuclear family must be destroyed. And they have been so good on making that happen over the years. So if there ever is, from me to you, any type of a call to action, it is to remind yourselves, and what I remind myself of every single day, which is that we need to be the living memory, not just of the things that we know that we remember from this time, like no masking, like no vaccine mandates, not just fighting for those things, but also the things from yesterday, when families were together, when the single motherhood rate in the Black community wasn't 74%, but 23% before the government said, we'll give you welfare, we'll give you handouts, we're gonna take care of you, we're your new family. When we see this COVID-19 welfareizing of America, people begging for a stimulus check, begging the government, please, please take care of us, the same government that created the problem, begging them for a solution just like they want. Our job is to be the living memory of that time, that land before time, when family mattered in this country. When it was not something that mothers were fearful of, but something that mothers were looking forward to. Realizing that it is our responsibility to raise our children, that it was never, ever the responsibility of the education system to be raising your children. We have allowed a culture to mock the idea of a stay-at-home mom when it should be glorified. There is no job tougher than raising good human beings. I leave you guys all with just optimism, because if there's a reason that I get up every day, if there's a reason that I travel once a week to speak around the country, it is because I am entirely optimistic that we can win. And I know it feels like doom, it feels like gloom, but I am telling you, look at the extraordinary efforts that they are going through right now to do whatever they can. You don't act like that when you're winning. You don't censor half of America when you're winning, right? They know that they have a very, very small window to try to normalize all of these changes. They know they have a very small window to get things back under control, to get things back to a place where people are believing the propaganda and believing the lies. I don't think there has ever been a time in any country, possibly ever, where the people and the citizens have been more awake to the corruption and the lies of their government. America right now, we are the last beacon of hope. If America falls, the world darkens. And I tell you to remember, when you wonder, what can you do, to remember that in times of war, everybody steps up to the plate and does something different. Maybe not every person in this room is a frontline fighter like I am. I like it. I love it. I love the adrenaline. Put me in the front, you know? I'll take all the bullets from the left and the media. Maybe you say, maybe that's not for me. Okay, well then think about any other war. What is your job? Maybe you're a writer. You're on a fire. Maybe you're a writer. Maybe you're writing articles. Right? Maybe you're creating email chains. Maybe you're making sure that we are communicating amongst each other at a time when the government does not want us as conservatives to be communicating and to be convening with one another. Maybe you're the organizer, right? Maybe you're the person with the money. I tell you, I would not be on the stage if it wasn't for people that took a chance on me when I was on YouTube, who contacted me and said, Candace, keep going. I want to give you $5,000. It meant the world to me, because it meant that I got to live another day. Maybe you're that person who just writes the check. Maybe you're the stay-at-home mother who says, I'm going to withdraw my child from this monstrosity. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. We have a country to save. We all better fight like hell. God bless.